but there's still a lot of things I don't know.
All right, then. If you think you're ready, I'll tell you everything I know. The truth behind the Guyver units, the creators and the Zoonoids, including the truth behind humankind itself. There was a race of alien creatures who came to Earth from far beyond our galaxy, the creators. We know now that they manipulated the Earth's ecosystem over the course of several billion years in an attempt to give rise to a very specific kind of life form. They needed something with high intelligence, strong survival instincts, and the ability to adapt to any environment. A fearsome, aggressive life form meant to serve as a weapon. After countless years, a creature that could serve as a base for that life form was created. And those creatures were us. All of humankind.
You expect me to buy that? You're telling us that we're nothing but a bunch of living weapons created by some alien race? That's what people are?
It was difficult for me to accept as well, but it's true.
Now that you mention it, Gio talked about the exact same thing. That we were all made as the basis for a series of bioweapons.
It makes sense. After all, human history is built on conflict. We seem to have a powerful inclination towards war and brutality. Perhaps we're subconsciously fulfilling our purpose.
You see, the Zoonoids are just normal humans who have been optimized for combat. Optimization is the process of artificially inducing genetic mutations in order to create a new form, or augment a specific ability. Human attributes allow for the possibility of transformation from the default into a secondary form. However, all Zoonoids are subject to the will of the Zoolords. Like Yo and Barkus, they can command large numbers of Zoonoids through psychic manipulation.
And you have the same powers, because you are a prototype for Gio's Zoolord form.
History. In the end, humans were never used in combat. Shortly after completing their experiment, the creators departed from the Earth. Perhaps some interstellar war that they were involved in had drawn to a close. Or perhaps they were influenced by some outside force. Unfortunately, their intentions have been buried beneath the sands of time. Scarcely had it been created when mankind was abandoned before its true purpose could be realized. Left without the guiding hands of the creators, optimized Zoonoids crossbred with normal humans, and bit by bit, their legacy faded away. But there's still a chance that some of them survived. The monsters spoken of in folklore throughout the world may have been the descendants of those very Zoonoids.
The Scorpion King made a pact with the dark god Anubis, that if Anubis would spare his life and let him conquer his enemies, he would give him his soul. Anubis accepted his offer and spared his life. Anubis gave the Scorpion King command of his army. And like an evil flood, they washed away all that lay before them. When his task was done, Anubis forced the Scorpion King to serve him for all time. His army was returned to the sands from whence they came, where they wait, silently, to be awakened once again.
We're the first to set foot inside this pyramid in over 5,000 years. Hello, what's this? Odd. It feels unlike anything I've ever touched.
Within this tomb shall sleep the evil god of darkness, Anubis. May the light of day never again touch his eyes.
Another silly Egyptian curse. It's all poppycock nonsense. We shouldn't scoff at the old curses.
Collins, what are you doing?
I just want to get a better look at this Anubis.
my eyes, or the beam of your torch. And now you three shall be the first.
Anubis. Well, shave my chest and call me Baldy.
Bingo's gonna be sorry he missed this.
The original model. You're not needed here now. Leave me.
Xanatos will want to know if you've secured immortality for him.
He'll get his report when I'm ready, not before. Now go.
I shall tell you all a story which begins long ago. On my own planet, I was a scientist, experimenting with a new power source, my power pyramid, but it was unstable, and its energy output caused a chain reaction within my planet's core. I barely managed to escape in my spacecraft. Sick with grief, I had accidentally destroyed my entire world. It was during my long journey through space that I perfected my power pyramid. What wonders it might have accomplished on my world, if my world yet existed. But it did not. Thus, I sought out another planet, your Earth of 5,000 years ago, where I might help its primitive peoples with the power pyramid, and perhaps, in a small way, atone for what I had done to my own world. But my appearance and my power frightened everyone. They attacked me with a strange gas. Before I could react, I slept the sleep of suspended animation, while your people built a structure of stone over my spacecraft, sealing me in for 5,000 of your years. But now I have returned to teach you thankless people a lesson, and I shall start by eliminating you, Sentinel-1. While I was telling you my story, I got a precise fix on your location.
Hear me, Guardian of the Gate. I demand a favor.
I grant but one boon, mortal, and it will be given to you as it is given to everyone when your time has come.
You took from me my only son, Anubis, 2 years ago in a pointless car accident.
Death is always pointless. That is the point.
Don't toy with me, Jackal God. I want my son back. I will make you give him back.
What you ask is unthinkable. Your son has passed. Let him rest. Death comes to us all.
Not anymore. With you trapped here forever, death has no sting. No one can die. And so my threat is very real. Taken from me.
On the contrary, death is the ultimate fairness. Rich and poor, young and old, all are equal in death. You would not like to see the Jackal God play favorites? Think what you're doing. All over the world there is birth, but no death. Our planet cannot support so many lives at once.
My only concern is my son. Return him to me, or suffer the consequences. Very well. If you will not give my son back, I will take him back. The papyrus up top contains a spell that transforms the reader into an avatar.
Avatar?
A human who becomes a vessel for a supernatural being.
All right, so we're diving deep into cryptids this time. Dogman, werewolves, Sasquatch, you name it.
The whole shebang.
YouTube, museums, ancient myths. Where do we even start?
You've got Victor. Claims he was a government agent.
Oh, yeah, Victor.
Part of a top-secret breeding program. For cryptids.
Cryptids. Okay, so let's just start there with Victor.
Okay.
His story. It's a lot.
It is. He goes into a lot of detail about this supposed program against the government was breeding these creatures, like Dogman and werewolves, to use them as soldiers?
Super soldiers. I mean,
exactly, especially for tunnel warfare back in Vietnam.
But it didn't go as planned, obviously.
According to Victor, no. The Dogman were just too hard to control, violent, went rogue a lot.
I can see that.
The werewolves, they were easier to manage, but still super dangerous. That natural bloodlust, you know.
So what happened to them after the program shut down?
Well, Victor says a lot of them escaped. Now they're out in the wild, which would explain, you know, a lot of those sightings people report. And he even says the government's still watching them, trying to keep it all under wraps.
That's a scary thought.
It is. It is.
To think they're just out there lurking around. So what does he actually say about, you know, what they look like, what they do?
He describes the Dogman as incredibly strong and territorial, mostly eats meat. Paints a pretty terrifying picture if you ever ran into one. The werewolves, on the other hand, he says they're pack hunters, also big on meat, and almost impossible to kill.
Wow. It's amazing how his descriptions line up with all the, you know, classic lore.
It's true.
You've got your solitary predator, the Dogman, and then the werewolf. Pack-oriented.
Yeah.
Almost demonic.
It's like he's taking those old myths and adding in his own experiences,
Yeah.
making it all seem a little too real.
And he talks about the emotional side, too. He had this bond with a werewolf.
Yeah.
Sebastian.
You're right. He said he had to put him down. It's too dangerous to keep him alive.
Really makes you think. If these creatures are real, are they just monsters? Or is there more to them?
That's a good question. It really blurs the lines. You expect a story about a government program, but then you hear about these moments of real emotion, almost a respect for them. It makes you wonder what Victor's trying to say about how we view cryptids. Are they just beasts? Or are they something else? Something we should try to understand.
It's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
A lot to think about. But we should move on to some of these other sources.
Yeah, good idea. What are you thinking?
Let's switch gears a bit. You mentioned Jez and Tom, the museum.
Museum Obscurum. Yeah.
That sounds like a good way to lighten things up a bit.
Definitely a change of pace.
So let's hear about that. Hopefully they didn't run into any real werewolves in there.
Let's hope not. Museums are for preserving history, not for making it come alive.
Right.
So this Museum Obscurum, what is it exactly?
It's in Denmark, dedicated to basically anything obscure or mythical. And the guy who runs it, Cornelius Rhoda.
Cornelius.
He's obsessed with the occult, like really believes in it.
And what'd they find there? Anything related to Dogman or werewolves?
No Dogman or werewolf exhibits, but they did check out a real vampire.
A real vampire.
Supposedly.
You've got Victor saying these creatures are real, government experiments, and then you have this museum saying creatures from folklore might be real too. Where's the line between myth and reality?
Yeah, I mean, how much of what we believe is based on like evidence versus just stories we've heard.
Good point. And museums, they're supposed to be, authorities. But they can blur those lines sometimes. It all depends on how they present the information. And if people actually think critically about it.
Like, don't believe everything you read.
Exactly.
Or in this case, don't believe everything you see in a museum.
You got to think for yourself.
Speaking of thinking, you mentioned Anubis, the Egyptian god of death. Seemed like a weird connection at first. What's the link?
Well, Anubis is usually shown with a dog head.
Like the Dogman.
Yeah, and in Egyptian mythology, he's a guardian of the dead, protecting souls. Kind of like some Dogman lore, where he protects the forest.
So they both, even though they're from totally different times and cultures, they're both canine figures, and they're both protectors. Just different things, I guess.
Exactly. It's almost like this archetype, a dog figure, symbolizing the border between the known and unknown, life and death.
Makes you wonder if these myths and creatures, maybe they're tapping into some deeper human experience.
Yeah, it's fascinating how these stories passed down for centuries still mean something for us. Maybe they speak to something fundamental, like our fear of the unknown, our need for protection, trying to make sense of the world.
And sometimes those stories get mixed up with, like, real events, even pop culture. Did you find something about werewolves and berserkers?
Yeah, it's interesting how that all comes together. Berserker comes from Norse mythology. These warriors fought with insane rage, said it was fueled by animal spirits.
So like a warrior tapping into this primal rage. Yep. And then you have werewolves transforming into these wolf-like beasts, also uncontrollable.
Shows how powerful these animal archetypes are.
Time to lose!
Wild, ferocious. It's captivated us for centuries. Keeps showing up in our stories. Ancient myths, werewolves, even modern cryptids like Dogman.
And sometimes those stories get woven into real-world stuff. You made a timeline, right, mapping this out. I remember seeing something about the University of Michigan and Marvel Comics.
Wait, I thought it would help to visualize how these ideas have evolved. So it starts with the University of Michigan. Their mascot's the Wolverine, known for being ferocious.
Right.
Then it goes to H.G. Wells, the island of Dr. Moreau, a scientist creating human-animal hybrids, taps into those fields of experimentation, messing with nature.
Like it predicted, the worries we have now about genetic engineering.
Exactly, and then it jumps to Marvel Comics, full of characters with wolf-like or cryptid qualities, Wolverine obviously, feral enhanced abilities, but also Sabretooth, Werewolf by Night, even Sasquatch.
A lot of them were experimented on too, by like secret organizations.
Okay.
Remind me of those rumors about breeding programs, manipulating these creatures for the military. Fiction mirroring reality.
Or maybe the other way around.
Right.
And it's not just the characters, even the colors. Blue and yellow, so important in these stories. Wolverine's costume, University of Michigan colors, even in Daft Pilkey's Dogman. Blue uniform, yellow badge.
So that color scheme, it's linked to. Strength, loyalty, wildness. A visual shorthand.
It's amazing how these random details start forming a pattern when you see the bigger picture, like a hidden code.
Speaking of hidden codes,
Yeah.
you also had that retelling of the Big Bad Wolf story, but with a Louisiana twist.
Oh, yeah.
What was that all about?
I wanted to see how these themes work in different cultures, so I took the Big Bad Wolf and swapped him out for the Rougarou,
Rougarou.
a werewolf creature from Cajun folklore.
So instead of just a wolf, you got this creature tied to Louisiana's history and myths.
Yeah, and in my version, the Rougarou is more complex. He represents resistance against oppression, not just a mindless beast.
Shows how these creatures can be interpreted
Yeah.
in different ways,
Yeah.
depending on who's telling the story.
They become blank slates for us to project our fears, hopes, beliefs.
Okay, so we've covered Victor's story, the Museum Obscurum.
The Anunnaki, interdimensional beings that visit the planet Earth every few thousand years. We arrive at a time called Nibiru, when the barriers between our worlds grow weak. The Anunnaki have a great history of helping humans, but we have no physical form and must inhabit animals. This is why some animals, our descendants, can talk and others cannot. But not all Anunnaki are kind and good. There are evil ones. And the most evil one of all is imprisoned beneath Crystal Cove and must not be set free. You must undo it, Scooby-Doo. Undo it all. Save yourself. Save your friends. Save the world.
Ancient myths, Berserker Rage, Marvel Comics, even a Louisiana werewolf. What else is there?
We still have the Tasmanian tiger stuff and the whole Scooby-Doo thing.
Scooby-Doo!
Seriously.
That's where it gets interesting.
So even from like government secrets and museums and myths, and now we're at Scooby-Doo. I'm with you, but also not. How does that fit in with all this?
Well, it's not the whole Scooby-Doo thing, just this one episode you mentioned, Scooby-Doo, werewolves.
Right.
On the surface, it's just like all the others. Spooky monsters and chases and unmasking the bad guy in the end.
Yeah, those meddling kids.
Exactly.
What makes this one stand out?
The details. There's this character, Wolverine, who's just like the one from the comics.
And they even talk about kangaroos, which doesn't really have anything to do with werewolves, but it's that whole marsupial thing we'll talk about later.
I see where you're going with this. So it's not that the episode is about cryptids, but it's like they're hinting at it.
Yeah.
Little clues.
Little winks.
Suggesting maybe the creators knew something.
Exactly. Like they're playing with us, making us wonder if maybe there's more to these stories than we think.
I like that. It's for those of us who are paying attention. You mentioned the Powerpuff Girls, too. How's that connected?
Oh, there's one episode. They have to protect the head of Anubis.
Anubis.
Again, it seems random, but it goes back to that canine thing we talked about.
Right. Dogs and the supernatural.
Yeah.
Anubis, the Dogman, werewolves, all linked by this dog figure.
Yeah, it makes you think why that image has been around for so long in so many cultures.
Maybe it's just a coincidence.
Maybe.
But it's still cool. Okay, so cartoons, but we haven't talked about the Tasmanian tiger yet. You had that excerpt right. That ties it all together.
This one focuses on the whole mystery of the Tasmanian tiger's extinction. It talks about the enigma of the Tasmanian tiger and how it connects to Hollywood, the movie The Howling the Third, the marsupial revelation.
Wait a minute. There's a Howling movie about marsupial werewolves.
There is. And the excerpt says, the movie's fictional, but it might have clues about whether the Tasmanian tiger is really extinct.
So look for the connections.
Right.
Keep an open mind.
Exactly. It might not be as simple as we think.
The Tasmanian tiger is a great example
Yeah.
of a real animal that's become like a cryptid, officially extinct, but people still see it.
They do.
Blurry pictures.
Stories that keep it alive.
Brings us right back to what we've been talking about, that there's more to the world than we can see or explain.
Whether it's government secrets, ancient myths, or creatures that might not even exist, there's something about the unknown that pulls us in.
I think that's a great way to end things, this deep dive. What a ride. Government conspiracies, cartoons, ancient myths, marsupial werewolf.
We've covered it all.
And it all comes back to keeping an open mind, questioning everything. Never stop exploring.
With curiosity and wonder.
That's it. So to everyone listening, keep digging, keep questioning, and who knows, maybe you'll be the one to find out what's really out there.
we're kind of using them as tunnel rats.
Yes.
So I'm going to turn the floor over to you. That way you can kind of share everything that you learned, because you learned some pretty information. So
yeah, I how it all came to be was the other day somebody had tracked me down. No, I don't. We got to talking, and he said that he knew about Project Werewolf, and that caught my attention. And I said, "Oh, really?" And he told me that he was a handler for Project Werewolf back in the day, and when he was in Vietnam, and that they used them as tunnel rats, or for just going in to take out a high-profile individual, to just anything they needed done, they could get it done when, like, a human wasn't able to get to this person.
Right.
Or this person was supposed to be underground. And they had tracked down and knowed what tunnel system they was in and everything.
Okay.
And
now,
so it went up.
Just to clarify something, if I could. He's a handler, he's in Vietnam, but he's not a soldier. He is an operative, correct?
He's what?
He's not a soldier, but he's an operative. I'm assuming that working for the same company your dad and you worked for?
Yes.
Okay.
He was one of the handlers. So he wouldn't have been sent out on today's missions in that word of the sense.
Right.
Because all he dealt with was his group of werewolves. And he that's what he shared with me about using his that he was assigned to, or they was assigned to him, either which way you want to look at it. And he was telling me, how they got them in country and everything. They was flown over. They wasn't tranquilized. They sat in the back of big cargo plane, flown over just like the troops was. And in the beginning, there was 150 in total sent over there. And so they've got them in these holding places, and they're feeding them like they was back in Virginia and all being trained. And they get ready to go to Vietnam. They put them on a plane, get them over there, yada yada. And they're waiting on their missions. Well, he starts drawing some individual targets, just not no high-ranking officers, nothing, just officers that need to go away. And they would show them pictures of them, give them general descriptions, and show them the pictures of who they was after, and tell them that whatever gets in your way, just take it out. So he did about 3 or 4 missions like this, where he took out low-ranking individuals and all. And then one day they hit him with, we want to use them underground, tunnel rats. He was concerned about their size, and he said, well, let's pick the smaller ones. Pick the smallest ones you've got to go into the tunnels. And he said, we'll try it. He said, his smallest was probably 4 times one human being. So you're talking about probably a 150-pound man. So you're talking 550, 600-pound werewolf to get down in a tiny hole to get down into these tunnels, which the real tunnel rats of Vietnam had told us that after you get into the tunnels, they open up quite a bit. And they said they'll have no trouble getting in it. They said it's get through the openings to get them down into the tunnels. They said that's where your problem's going to lie, is getting a werewolf down into that tunnel. And he said after they would get in there, they would be able to move around more freely. Well, finally there came a day where he was asked to take 2 of his tunnel rats they was going to try them out on this one tunnel. They knowed where the entrance was and they knowed where the exit was. And they was going to try them out. And on this first one that they did, there was supposed to be about 120 operatives in there. And they knowed of 3 openings on where they could come out. And the 4th being the one that they was going down into. There could have been far more, or don't know how many more holes there could have been that they didn't know about. But they had been watching, and they know this one area. So they take 2 over there. I guess they had picked, I'm guessing on this, he didn't tell me this, but I'm guessing they picked the biggest hole to put them down into of what the holes that they had. And then they put GIs at the end of the other 3, if they come running out, they're going to shoot them down. And told them to make sure the target, make sure it wasn't one of the werewolves. And because he was the only handler, he was going to get them in the holes, and he was going to go to the next place where they thought they would come out. And he said that they got him down into the hole, and he had to go, he said, 1 click to get to the biggest next place that they all thought they would come out. And there was 2 other places in between that they had found that they could come out. But they was going to have GIs on them 2, and the first one they started in. Anyway, they get them down into the holes, and they tell them to kill everything in there. Men, women, children, everything. Kill them all. And he goes to the other end. Been there a couple hours. Hadn't heard nothing from them. No way to communicate with them. And all of a sudden they get a radio call from the second hole that was in line, and said the werewolves just busted out right here and went tearing through the jungle. Wasn't slowing down for nobody. And went on. They got some real tunnel rats over there. And he went down in there and went through the tunnel, popped his head up at each opening, let them know that it was cleared to that point. Got to the 3rd one, said it was cleared to that point. And this guy at the 3rd point told him to tell the handler he didn't really want to meet these things underneath there, but they kept telling him that they'd jumped out and ran. They had jumped out and ran. And he was just worried to death he was going to meet one of these things in there, and they was going to take him out.
Right.
And so he pokes his head back down and under and goes on, comes out at the end. He said that was, them 2 offshoot tunnels was the only 2 offshoot tunnels that he's seen in the entire distance of it. And he said, everybody's in there dead. And he said, I'll have nightmares over this for the rest of my life.
Mm. Yeah, they weren't small. Those tunnel systems, they were, you know, there was different levels to them. So there was probably a quite a decent amount of Viet Cong in there.
Yes.
And they just went through and tore everything up.
They tore everybody up.
Wow.
And but when they got out to the end, they broke and ran.
Right.
Well, them 2's gone. They you know, they was told when they went over there, you complete this mission, we'll bring you back here, and we'll turn you loose. You've done your duty.
Yeah, because you shared that with us.
And so they just never searched for him. Never went on about anything else. And he said he did 2 or 3 more like that, where they hit, you know, low numbers of Viet Cong. And they said he got a call one day to bring up 2 more and said, we've got a large tunnel we want to clear. And he thought it was like the others, you know. And he gets up there and gets ready, and they're giving him his pictures, you know, because there was one specific target in there they wanted to take out. Pretty high up this one was. This one was far up the chain of command. But they'd watched him go in, and this one I think had 5 entrances that they knowed of. Same setup, same everything. They took them to the first biggest opening that they knowed of, and then the others kind of ran in a line or offset, or anyway, they said, you think they can handle it? And he said, well, sure. And they told him there's over 500 Viet Cong in there. And he said, you know, this is the biggest that we've tried. We're just sending 2. Why don't we send more? He said, we don't want to lose no more. Because with other handlers through the 28 months that they was over there, he had lost 2. It's all he had lost at that time. But other handlers had lost 17 more. Mm. So right now they've lost 19 total. And no, they lost 17 total. I'm sorry. He had lost 2, and they had lost, the other handlers had lost 13 between them. And so they come out, they put him down in there. He goes to the far end, which he said was 3 clicks away. He got there, and he's been there he got there, and he'd been there for like 3 or 4 hours, and he's thinking something's wrong. Maybe they gunned him down. Maybe they shot him with something, you know, big and powerful underground that could kill them. Or, you know, something just went wrong, because he didn't feel like it should have took him that long in closed areas like they was having to fight and take these people out in, that it shouldn't have taken that long for them to make it through. to where he was, or to where anybody was. And he sat there another 2 hours after he got to thinking that. And he said he called for a tunnel rat to be put in to start checking to see what was going on, but to know that it wasn't clear. He had called it in to get him there, and he had arrived at where they put the werewolves in at, and he was sitting there at the mouth of the 5th opening, and here they come. They busted out, wide open, gone. Said he didn't even have time. He hollered and hollered and hollered, but they wouldn't even slow down for him. And they looked healthy, he said. He said that's about all he could tell about him. He said it was dusky dark, and that's about all that they could tell. They was in a hot zone, and the soldiers was on the edge, not on account of the werewolves, but on account of it getting nightfall, and everything was, you know, they was worried about being ambushed, more or less. Right. People coming to them openings and going in, and all the GIs was getting nervous about that. He orders two of the tunnel rats in, and they go through tunnel by tunnel. They even go down to where they found trap doors lifted up, where they went down. I think he said it went down 3 levels. And they was into them sections down there and had dead just everywhere. Said it's a mutilation. Said it was awful. And said that they finally made it to the end and came out. He said that they gave them 2 different counts. One had counted 523 and one had counted 543 dead. But that all the tunnels down there was clear.
Wow.
And
no.
They said that the government, after this, had got to worrying about these things running loose, and thought that that would come back on them if they started just attacking villagers and everybody else. So the government shut down the program, or the White House shut down the program as far as doing what they was doing over there, and brought them out. Now they since then, or even after then, they was sent back in for individual targets. But as far as just a mass scale, like killing everyone like that, they wasn't sitting back in for nothing no more like that.
Now, when they were running, when they came out of the hill or out of the holes, were they aggressive to the Americans that were at the end of these holes, or they just, like you said, they were on the first go around, there was a couple of GIs at the end, or did they just sprint right by them?
They just ran by them. They wasn't aggressive towards no U.S. personnel at all.
Okay. All right. Now, here's my thing. Here's my question. Why was the concern of them being kind of, not released purposely, but released and then escaped? Why wouldn't they mind that? I mean, they're promised their freedom already. So why wouldn't they just say, well, I mean, that's less room on the plane back? What was the big thing of having a couple of those creatures wandering around the vast forests of Vietnam in that area?
Well, they've got a taste for blood at that point.
Okay.
And most generally, when one gets taste for human blood, they won't stop.
That's when you guys get called in, and in stateside when they get a taste for human blood. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So.
In my case, I can't go into details on this, but just like the case in Idaho that I've talked to you about.
Right. Now, my question about this Vietnam thing more, because I kind of want to talk about this for a few more minutes, if you don't mind.
Okay.
With the Vietnam case, you've got all of these creatures that are running around. Now they're kind of got a bloodlust. What did the other ones do? There was 150. So they kind of
150 total. Yeah.
Did they close down the tunnel rat case at that point and ship them back, or?
Yeah. The other 131 came home.
Okay.
Was taken back to Virginia for some training. I don't know how many. He didn't tell me how many was involved in going into the tunnels. I'm sure all of them did at one point or the other. But as far as knowing exactly how many of them seen or didn't see action, so to speak, I don't know that part.
Okay.
He didn't go into no details about that.
Right. Now the conversation, I'm sure, lasted a little while. How did it end? Pretty.
Oh, we talked for close to 2 hours, and he shared a lot with me about what it was like back then. He said that they had tried to use them to track them in the U.S. when something went wrong, and they was not really cooperative.
Okay.
On helping with that, at least as far as a werewolf was involved.
So if one kind of went rogue, they tried to use another werewolf to track that at that time?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But evidently that didn't work out very well.
Right. So he kind of had a clue of what crap was like back in the day before there was all the fancy, electronics and stuff like that was during your time and stuff like that, right?
Oh, no. We talked about that a little bit, and he was just amazed at how it had evolved. Daylight to dark was his words. And, which I'm sure it was from way back in the 50s, 60s, 70s.
This is an urgent message to all Texas seniors on Medicare. You can now qualify for a grocery allowance card worth